today, just on this one day, I've spoken to 2 women who were raped by members of this Parliament. 2. Just today. That's a fairly standard day for me. And I noticed that these are not the people who've so far been mentioned much today. And some of them told me what they wanted me to say today. So I will just read out, actually, some of what they sent to me. So the exclusion at the point of charge sends a clear message to victims that not only will we not investigate unless a victim goes to the police, but we won't act unless they're charged, which happens in less than 1% of cases. Exactly. So what's the point, was essentially what this victim said to me. And I wonder if the Honourable Lady from the Procedures Committee, who told us of all the people that she had had in front of her, how many of the victims of these crimes came and gave evidence or were given an opportunity to give evidence in private? None. And so I am going to stand here and I'm going to speak up for them, because every single one of them wishes for this to be on arrest. And the idea that an arrest can happen on a vexatious charge does somewhat suggest that nobody in this building who has said that has ever dealt with an arrest in a case of sexual violence or serious violence, and that this amendment to make it arrest, it happens to be in the name of somebody who, as we've already shown, is always right on this, and a former police officer who I would urge the House to take... I know we're not always keen on experts, but I would urge the House to understand that it takes a huge amount for somebody to be arrested. You can't just ring, like West Midlands Police, and say, Jess Phillips assaulted me, and they're going to come round and arrest me within the hour. What world are we living in? This is absolutely madness, that we think that that we don't trust the police officers in our country, is what we're saying if we don't do this at arrest. And so to the member for Christchurch, who, by the way, isn't here today, and I have informed him that I will mention him, as he was laying his amendments, which if the one in our name falls, I will absolutely vote for, so it's not a particular criticism of him. I asked him, I said, what about safeguarding, when we were both tabling our motions? And he said, but the thing is we're not employed, and so employment law doesn't come to us. I said, would you like this? I asked him if he had children or grandchildren, and I said, would you like this in your child's school? If one of the teachers had been arrested for rape, and they'd go and teach your kids? And he said, the thing is we're self-employed. So I said, OK, childminders, they're self-employed. Happy with a rapey childminder who's been arrested? Looking after your 3-year-old? I'm not. Why do we think we're so special in here? Why are we all talking as if all the people who work in this building don't have a right to feel safe when they walk around? The women I spoke to today don't feel safe, and they told me to come and say it today. The women who work in the office on my floor all said to me, go and say this for us, Jess, today. Why do we think we're so special? And to the member for Christchurch, who I noticed today, his constituents are completely bereft of representation. The arguments that we're taking away a constituents' rights does somewhat suggest no one in this building should ever take a day off on the slip. Don't be going on holiday. What about your constituents? I will.
First thing I think we should acknowledge is that my honourable friend for Christchurch is on a parliamentary delegation, and so he's not being slipped in the sense that he's not on holiday or whatever, and I think it'd be wise if she would reflect on that. The second thing is, given the passion with which she's spoken, which we all accept and we all agree about the victims, if somebody was arrested for a serious sexual offence, would she agree with her honourable friend that exclusion should be the last resort, or would she think that they should be automatically excluded?
I guess it would entirely depend on the sexual offence, but I can recognise enough, even though I jokingly said I'll be on the panel earlier, I can recognise enough my own particular bias in this regard. No, I do think exclusion would be the answer, but so too will most people, is the truth. But the idea that which, you know, I understand. And to the point that I was making, on the point of the member for North East Somerset, this chamber is where we represent people. Well, are the member for Christchurch, I'm just using him as an example because you said that he wasn't here, or anybody else, are their constituents bereft? Where are all the people who are in here now, are they not being represented? So this argument that keeps being going, I'm doing it for my constituents. I bet you I could find people in every single person's constituents who don't think that they're being represented particularly well. I will.
I'm sure she must recognise that there's a very great difference between not attending one particular debate and being excluded from Parliament for up to perhaps 2 years or so. I'm sure she must realise that there is a great difference between those two things in representing your constituents.
The trouble is that is what is currently happening. That is already happening. Now, if he would like to join me, or anybody who doesn't want it to be 2 years to wait from arrest to charge, to join me in all of the advocacy that I have been, you know, before I was in this building, when I worked in this field, it wasn't 2 years between arrest and charge. So maybe the Leader of the House could reflect on her party's own record in this regard. Of course, it shouldn't take that long. Of course it shouldn't, and I think it was the member for Amber Valley said that if it was quick, and we all want to see that for everybody involved. But the idea that we are some sort of superior beings who shouldn't have to be concerned about safeguarding laws that are totally standard practice across the whole of the country. And do you know who gets excluded now? The person who got raped. That's who we exclude now. We say, this magical being has to be able to stay because in 1348, blah, 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 blah. Like, what about the person who got raped who works here? I will give way.
This should be done properly. I think the Honourable Lady makes a compelling case for arrest, but only if it's done in a proper and constitutional manner.
I wish that I knew anywhere. Like I say, I'm often right on these things. I'm going to err to his judgment on that because what I know about the things, and I don't mean to besmirch him, what I'm saying is we seem to act like we are some sort of superior beings. And the people who currently get excluded are often young women who never, and I've dealt with cases where it was young men, who never work in politics again. The woman I spoke to first thing this morning has never stepped foot in this building again. She has given up politics. We have extinguished that light. We gave it up. We excluded her. And we allowed the person she alleges to have done that to her to walk around, and everybody who votes against the arrest would be willing to allow that person to walk around, possibly being a danger to somebody else, for another 2 years.